Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Bryce Simon is here with me. We got a trade earlier today on Sunday with Dorian Finney-Smith getting moved to the Los Angeles Lakers for D'Angelo Russell. Mike Brown was fired a few days ago by the Sacramento Kings. Luka Doncic is out due to an injury that occurred on Christmas. We're going to dive into all of the news, everything that has occurred over the last week since we recorded a podcast. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? Have to get my bobblehead here. The bee
We're out of
bobbler.
practice.
Bee
We're out of practice.
bobbler. I know. I was like reaching for it last second. I was like, what is going on here? I knew I have some sort of intro that I'm supposed to stick to. Been traveling today. Went up and saw the Nuggets and the Pistons play last night. This is kind of my one chance to go be credentialed media member and interact. And the coolest part for me is I get to sit courtside pregame. You've experienced this, but just watching these guys warm up, and not that there's a whole lot of interaction with them, really none, but just being able to sit there and watch them go through their pregame routines and, just seeing how everybody's a little bit different and the things they do. Just a lot of fun. Obviously, the Nuggets played really well. I think that's the best I've seen Jamal Murray play offensively was in that game last night. He was really good. Jokic is unbelievable, but good trip up there. And now back in Kansas here for a week before I get back into school.
I love it. You get a nice little week off. It's great. It's been just madness here. My wife Laura's sister's in town, so we're moving around. We're doing all of the family events. It's so great. I'm so happy to be able to kind of go around and get to be around family here. It's fantastic. And we went to the cricket on... What was that? That was Saturday that we went here. So Friday, your time. It was great. First ever Boxing Day test. It was amazing. I got the full experience. It was it was a thinker's day of cricket. There were only 4 wickets taken, which is a low number. There was not a crazy amount of excitement until one of the Indian players, Nitish Kumar Reddy, hit 100. But I did have a group of, let's call them lads, younger lads in front of us that were keeping it entertaining by drinking from 10 a.m. all the way through to 4:30 p.m. whenever they called it for rain. It was a delightful day.
I love when you talk cricket or text about cricket or tweet about cricket because I have no effing clue what you're talking about. And if a picture doesn't accompany that paragraph, I'm very, very lost. So I appreciated that you shared pictures on Twitter and Blue Sky whenever you tweeted about those, or I would not have known what event you and your wife were watching.
Yeah, look, we had a blast. Like, truly, I think every person should get to experience like a cricket match involving India at some point in person in their life. Indian fans are truly just the absolute best. They are so happy to be there. They are super fun. They're super engaged. They love cricket. Like, I don't know if I've seen a group of people that has been more fun to be like sitting in proximity to than like the Indian fan base for cricket. It's unbelievable. It's such a cool experience. It's the second time that we've done it. We went to the final, it might have been, I can't remember what it was. We went to one whenever the T20 World Cup was here too. But yeah, it's an amazing experience that I could highly recommend to everybody. The other thing that I would highly recommend, shifting gears to basketball now, is having enough defensive players to be able to get stops. And that is something the Los Angeles Lakers made an effort to achieve earlier today. Pulling it up now. The Los Angeles Lakers have agreed on a trade sending D'Angelo Russell, Maxwell Lewis, and 3 second-round picks to the Brooklyn Nets for Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton, sources told ESPN, per my old colleague Shams Charania over there. Okay. Interesting deal, if only because there was a report that came out, I can't remember if it was last night or 2 nights ago, from Mark Stein, saying that the Grizzlies were actually quite close to a deal for Dorian Finney-Smith involving Luke Kennard, I believe John Concher, and potentially a first with like second rounders going back from the Brooklyn side. Instead, the Nets decide to swing Russell, Lewis, in 3 seconds, basically, for Finney-Smith. I'll give you the floor here. What was your thought when you saw this deal pop up on your Twitter feed?
So my initial reaction was, okay, I like this for the Lakers. Dorian Finney-Smith is a nice addition, spaces the floor. As you mentioned, another defender. My next reaction was, and I'm fascinated to get your take on this. We haven't even texted about this trade or anything other than me joking about it being the Shake Milton trade. Is Dorian Finney-Smith the right type of defender for what the Lakers need? Is he going to be able to take the matchups the Lakers need him to take? It's obviously a good addition. My next thought was, as much as people want to hate on D'Angelo Russell, and at times, rightfully so, some of the decision making and inconsistency, there is offensive usage there that has to be replaced now in terms of some of the ball handling, some of the playmaking, some of the scoring. That's not necessarily what DFS does. So is this a, hey, we're finally really going to turn the ball over to Austin Reeves and let him really take all of this playmaking when LeBron's out and, all of that. So those were, I like it on the surface. They didn't have to give up a first round pick. That's what I thought initially. And then those were kind of the questions that I had that I haven't completely reconciled, but initially had me wondering in terms of what this addition means big picture. The other tertiary one was, okay, what's the starting lineup look like? Are the Lakers done? What happens with Rui now? Does he still make as much sense, or can he be flipped for something else that makes more sense in the backcourt? So those were my initial thoughts that went through my head.
Okay, so let's start kind of here. So when I did trade deadline big board,
great trade value, Sam Vecenie, you nailed that one.
I did. Yeah, I did pretty well on this one.
And the best fits. Look at you go. Ball.
I do know ball. And I talked to quite a few people around the league to where I had a good sense of where this was going. So Dorian Finney-Smith, I had rated as the number 10 player that we thought was like relatively available. Look, there are players around the league that are getting shopped that I probably don't totally know about, in all honesty. Like, I think I have a pretty good sense of who's available, but there are probably players around the league that teams are talking about that I'm not totally sure of. But among the guys that I think are like realistically on the market, that could be or are likely in some respect to be moved, or that teams would like to move, I had Dorian ranked 10th. Part of the reason for that is that, let's start on offense. Okay. I think he is kind of a tailor-made fit for this Lakers group on offense.
Sure.
That just desperately needs like a catch and shoot corner guy.
Yeah.
Watching Rui drives me insane with this offensive team. And like, he's a better offensive player than he is defensive player. But the problem for Rui is that, yes, there are nights where the 3-point shot is going and it's falling, but his issue is that he constantly stops and like holds the ball at the end of the day. He never moves it quickly. He has to stop and survey. He has to, catch, take a dribble, catch, stop, and like look around. He almost never hits like the open guy. And I'm not saying Dorian Finney-Smith is like consistently going to attack closeouts and become this like super high level passer or anything, but I think he moves it just a little bit quicker. On top of that, he's just a better 3-point shooter at this point than what Rui Hachimura is. Rui is a fine player. Like, I don't mean this like to crush Rui. I think Rui is best utilized as a 6th man, 7th man who can come in and like hammer mismatches in the post, get to those little mid-range jumpers that he really likes. I almost like him more in that respect than as like a 5th starter because it just feels a little bit easier to kind of make his skill set work for him in those moments. But with DFS, like, he's just an awesome catch and shoot guy at the end of the day. Like, he's not a movement shooter or anything, but this year he's taken 116 catch and shoot threes and drilled them at a 42% clip, right? Like, if you give him an open 3-pointer, he's going to make it. Last year, he was at like 36%. And that was, like, if I remember correctly, fairly low for what we've seen from him previously over the course of his career. So in terms of the way that the offense is structured, where they do have a decent amount of movement, but also really like to operate in horn sets, you can throw Finney-Smith in the corner and you can have him just be a consistent catch and shoot guy. And he's somebody that teams have to close out on. The other side of the court is the more interesting one to me.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the subtraction of Russell in a second here.
Okay.
But I want to talk about Finney-Smith as a, fit first. I think Finney-Smith is a good, versatile defender. This year for the Nets, like, he was dealing a lot with fives.
Yeah.
Because, like, especially early in the year, they would start Ben Simmons and they'd have Ben Simmons be like the 5 on offense kind of, and then guard like at the point of attack defensively, or like guard a wing defensively, and then Finney-Smith would like slide down to 5 structurally.
So I went back through my notes and I have a Nuggets game, and he's starting with Clowney, Schroeder, Thomas, DFS, Cam Johnson, and Clowney, and DFS took the Jokic matchup. He was the primary defender on Jokic. And listen, I'm not saying he was super successful. Just to your point, those are the types of things he was having to do for this team.
Totally. So he is a much better defender than Rui. Like, he is a drastically better defender than Rui. Like, this is to me, significant upgrade, but it's in that role, not necessarily the role of like perimeter high level defender, which is kind of the thing that you and I have talked about.
Yes.
We think that they need defensively. Now, look, not having a guy getting beaten backdoor on cuts and not having a guy who's going to get like, who's going to miss a rotation here or there. Finney-Smith isn't going to do that. Like that, he's going to be constantly available. He's really engaged. He's really smart. He's a super intuitive defensive player. He's a low usage offensive player. On top of that, I think that these types of players who you don't have to work to create shots for, who are happy in low usage offensive roles and who just know defensive structures from being around the NBA for a long time, these are the easiest players, in my opinion, to fit as trade deadline acquisitions, right? You don't have to adjust what you're doing in any way. You can just do what you're doing, and he should just slot in pretty well. He's a smart player. He's been around the league for a long time. I think this should work well in that respect. Now, I do think that they can't be done now, though. And the good news about this deal is that they didn't really move much of their flexibility, right? They didn't move a first round pick here. They can still move multiple first round picks to go out and get somebody if they want to. They didn't have to move a Dalton Connect or a Reeves, which, like, I don't think they're moving Reeves, but like, or even like a Hood-Schifino, who isn't a valuable player at this point. They've declined his option, whatever, right? Like, they didn't move any of their interesting younger players, really just Reeves and Connect. And Christie, I guess, to an extent, given that he's starting and has been okay, like as a rotational wing. They didn't have to do that in order to acquire Finney-Smith. So they still have flexibility to go out. They still have contract flexibility with Rui, with Gabe Vincent, with Jared Vanderbilt.
Yep.
They have those like mid-level contracts to be able to structure different kinds of deals. To me, this continues to set up well for them to go out and do what I talked about on Jason Timp's podcast, and everyone had a fucking meltdown about it. I don't think the Lakers are contenders as presently constructed. I thought they were contenders if they could go out and make interesting moves in order to fix some of their flaws, and particularly the defensive flaw that they had. Finney-Smith is a good start in that respect. I don't think he's the final answer, but I think that his ability to guard really, I would say 3s, 4s, and 5s at this point. I don't think he's somebody that you want like guarding quicker guys. If he's stuck on an island and he's, in a switch scenario, he'll be okay at it. Like he's not going to get totally cooked or anything, but he's not like some stopper on the perimeter. He's a like bigger, 3, 4, 5 defender who is fairly switchable across those positional spectrums, but I think they need to go out and still get another perimeter player. And oh, by the way, here's where I will ask you a question and involve you in the conversation again, now that I've talked. They do also kind of need a little bit more creation now with Russell being gone.
Yes.
How do you think the subtraction of Russell hinders them from an offensive perspective at this point?
Yeah, like I said, I know I presented that one third as I went through my different things, but I kind of wanted to present first, okay, adding Dorian Finney-Smith, what do I think that means? Okay, now taking away D'Lo, what do I think that means? And again, with D'Lo, I realized that at times people are unhappy and they questioned him, all of that. I understand it with D'Lo, but he still was this team's 5th leading scorer. He took the 4th most shot attempts on the team. He was 3rd in assists per game. You have to replace that. And while everything you said about Dorian Finney-Smith is really spot on offensively, and it sounds great in terms of just fitting him into a role, all of that sounds great. This is a team that in times we've already questioned half court creation and those things. I think with JJ Redick, people probably worry about it a little bit less because you count on him to be creative with how he does things in the half court, sets, actions, continuities, all of that. But I think the guy it puts pressure on, I think he's ready for it. Like I've been screaming, I think Austin Reeves' offensive role takes a jump here. He's got to take even more usage and really go in and ball out because there's not D'Lo taking those reps. Now, this leads back to the defensive end though. You can't ask Austin Reeves to now take his usage plus D'Lo's usage and go be, a primary perimeter defender. And I think that's where Max Christie, you mentioned him briefly. I feel like this is where Max Christie just has to capitalize on this opportunity. This is a huge opportunity for him. I think their best lineup starting is probably Reeves, Christie, DFS, and then the big 2. I think what's interesting is what you said about Rui. If Rui can transition to the second unit role where not necessarily a creator for others, but just a creator of offense. You can run some isolations for him and all of that. And you feel better about it because you don't have all 3 of those other guys on the floor. Maybe that's a really nice role for him to settle into on the second unit with Dalton Connect and then one of the big 3 and sprinkle in, Cam Reddish or a big, whoever it is. So that was interesting to me. You talking about Rui maybe settling into that second unit role, and maybe between him doing that, Austin taking some more usage, it compensates for the loss of what D'Lo was taking in terms of offensive role and usage.
Yeah, and look, like it's hard with like second units with the Lakers, right? Because the thing that JJ Redick I think has done really well this year is actually like stagger his lineups. And make sure that he always has like a good group of players on the court. For instance, like the Reeves AD combination a lot of the time. With like some of the second unit near the end of first quarters, right? So that part is interesting. What I was kind of wondering about is, during the Dalton Connect, like early run, right, where he was really good. One of the things I talked about was the fact that I really like him as a starter for this team potentially because of that ability to shoot, right? That ability to be that, the kind of elevator for everybody else around him because of the shooting ability and because you can run him in different offensive actions and use him as a movement shooter, right? I actually think Dorian Finney-Smith is like the perfect acquisition to slot Dalton back into the starting lineup potentially if Dalton can actually handle his business defensively. Now, that's a whole other question, whether or not Dalton can handle his business defensively. He's been really bad on that end. He has been so bad that like there are moments where it feels like his breakdowns specifically are causing so much harm to the defense that like no matter what you cover for around him, the breakdown is so bad that it is hard to make up for it at the end of the day. So he has to continue over the course of this rookie year to get better and better and better at that respect. But if he can do that, you now have Reeves, Connect, Finney-Smith, LeBron, AD, and that's a little bit more interesting to me in terms of a fit stylistically, offensively, because you have the non-movement shooter in Finney-Smith, you have the movement shooter in Connect, you have a good point guard in Austin Reeves, who I think can handle a point guard role fairly reasonably at the NBA level, especially with LeBron out there on the court as well, plus AD, who's going to handle a decent amount of the usage as well. The key is defense at the end of the day. Dalton's really going to have to improve there. The real question now, though, is what do you do when Reeves is off the court?
Yeah.
As a ball handler? I actually think that they have to go out and find another body now at this point. Gabe Vincent hasn't really been an answer in that regard. I mean, the name I keep coming back to is Bruce Brown. I think he's probably the closest. He's not really a ball handler, though. Like, he's more of a, okay, catch a short roll and make a decision kind of guy, right?
Secondary action decision maker.
Like, I wonder if you could stagger like LeBron, Reeves, and Bruce Brown well enough to where you might be able to get enough. But I don't know if I'm totally sold on that either. It's hard. It's really, really hard to kind of figure out where they should go next. But this move in and of itself isn't quite enough, in my opinion, to get the Lakers over the hump. What the other thing I will say too, though, is that like the Lakers are quite solid right now.
Sure.
You know, the sky was falling there for a minute, and I had every single freaking Lakers hater in my DM saying like, oh my God, you know, how could you say this team's a competitor, you idiot, like all this. And you look up and they're sitting here, they're fifth in the Western Conference, they're 18-13. They just went out and added the exact kind of guy that I thought made sense for them. My point was never that they were a contender as presently constructed. I just thought they had the flexibility and the wherewithal to be able to go and get potential players that make sense for them on the market. This is one of them. I think that they have the wherewithal to go get another. How would you go about replacing Russell's production? Because actually here, this is where I can flash another thing up on the screen. You know, I just did like a quick search on dunksandthrees.com, right? Like Taylor Snar's like EPM website. You know, I think EPM is still probably the best all-in-one metric that you'll find. So just looking through here, I did a quick comparison of Finney-Smith and D'Angelo Russell. And this is kind of a hard chart to read at the end of the day. But what you're looking at here is Finney-Smith, who's a few years older than D'Angelo Russell. This year, he's been worth 2.1 wins to the Brooklyn Nets, plus 1.4 on offense, plus 1.4 on defense. D'Angelo Russell this year has been a negative player because the defense has been so bad. He has been a negative 1.5 defensive player this year, according to EPM's model, and has only been worth 0.8 estimated wins. I've seen some of the numbers that people are throwing out there. Some of the other advanced numbers that say like Russell is a drastically better player than Finney-Smith. A lot of that comes because the previous year, last year, Russell's offense was quite valuable for the Lakers and he was worth like 8 wins or so. And I think that like late season bump is still kind of pushing his numbers up for numbers that include more than just this season's worth of action to this point. And look, it's 29 games. It's not like a massive sample or anything, but it is. I don't think people recognize how bad Russell has been this year. I know that like the, advanced numbers say that the Lakers are consistently better with him out on the court on offense versus on defense, but I don't know. Like you start to actually dig into them in like, okay, LeBron and AD with D'Angelo Russell off, they average like 115 per 100 possessions. All three of them out there on the court together, they average 114 per 100 possessions. Russell and Anthony Davis without LeBron is weirdly like a lineup that is killing. They're averaging 121.4 per 100. LeBron's on-offs have been funky this year. I would imagine that Russell AD lineup without LeBron has played a lot of minutes against bench units. Just kind of thinking anecdotally, having watched a lot of Lakers games. And then LeBron and Russell without AD on the court is at like 110.9 per 100 possessions. So in general, I think that like the numbers where Russell is kind of eating on bench units offensively are kind of boosting his numbers a little bit more than what the actual reality is of what his play has been worth this year. He has been really egregiously bad on defense for the Lakers. Like it's been a significant problem the entire time that he's been out there, which is why they've had to put him with the bench unit at this point.
Yeah, and as intriguing as the offense is and as hot as he can get it sometimes, you always know something crazy is coming eventually also. Like he's going to take a bad shot or he's going to throw a bad pass, it's a turnover or something like that. And like, I'm not trying to just shit on D'Angelo Russell. Like he's a very talented player and his offense, again, like we wouldn't have been this conversation if I didn't think that his offensive usage was important for this team. It does have to be replaced. I think the short answer is I've mentioned Austin Reeves. I've mentioned JJ Redick. I think you bring in JJ Redick to solve some of these things offensively. I think you should be able to have a good enough offense when you have Anthony Davis, you have LeBron James, you have Austin Reeves, you have a floor spacer now in Dorian Finney-Smith, you have a floor spacer in Dalton Connect. Like I think you have enough offensive pieces that you can put that at the foot of JJ Redick or the feet of JJ Redick and say, okay, his offensive mind and creativity and his staff, they can figure this out. I still worry a little bit when a game slows down in the half court. Do you have enough creation? But we will see. I think I'm still a little bit concerned, depending on how they feel about Max Christie, of the perimeter point of attack defender. Like, who is that guy? And so I think you started to ask like some names. I always default to the Jazz guards. I don't know if the Lakers are going to go, like Clarkson solves the scoring. Sexton can do some of that. I like Sexton as a just truly point of attack defender on the perimeter, but that he's small, right? We've talked about this where that can cause some issues in the playoffs with his size. So I struggle as I just look through teams and guys that might be available to find the name that makes the most sense to add in. Like, does Lonzo Ball help in this regard at all? Like, is that a guy that comes in and helps this team at all on an expiring deal? You mentioned the money flexibility that they have. Like, can the Lakers afford to take a chance on that in terms of like, is he going to stay healthy, be able to play the necessary minutes to, get the return on that investment? So I struggle a little bit to find that name that I really like to finish this. But I'm with you in terms of like, I still want to see another move. And to be fair, like Lonzo's been a great story, but it's not like he's been a world beater in his, he's only played 13 games, has, shooting 32% from three. He's had some really nice moments. I love that he's back and playing. I don't think the Lakers are a team that can take a chance on him if as the final piece, like we're talking about here.
Yeah, look, like I don't think the Bulls are going to like buy out Lonzo or anything at this point. That's kind of my read on it. But if they were to buy him out, that is an amazing addition for the Lakers. I don't think that they can use the contracts that they have at their disposal to take the chance on Lonzo.
Agreed.
Because that becomes a little bit trickier, in my opinion. In terms of just like the guys that you have at your disposal, like really you only have Rui Vincent and
Vanderbilt,
Jared Vanderbilt to be able to do that. And I mean, like, look, if they're willing to do like, I mean, honestly, like I might, him or Vanderbilt's interesting. Like I'm interested to see what Vanderbilt can bring for them at some point, but we shall see. The name you brought up is Sexton. Like that's an interesting name to me. He at least does give like real effort defensively. He's just very small and it's difficult for him at times to be able to handle everything that is required of him on that end, but he does give real effort. Like he plays hard. I'll at least give him that. And he would be a secondary creator for them in like the Dennis Schroedery kind of mold that this team has had success with previously. Just kind of looking at the trade board, which, like, by the way, we're just going to pull this up on the screen too,
Yeah.
in terms of what I had for Russell. I'd Russell lower than DFS, which, you know, was just the feeling of the league, right? Around the league. Salary value, salary matching and trade. Best fits, Nets and Raptors. I did well here with D'Angelo Russell. Did very, very well with both of these guys in this deal.
Love it.
The next question I have for you, just kind of look, well, let's talk through, I guess, the, you know, other names that you could bring up here. I mean, I think that Levine, Butler, like those guys, you can't really do necessarily. I mean, Bogdanovich is kind of interesting, but the defense, that doesn't help. Bruce Brown is probably the best fit defensively, but might not be the best fit offensively. Sexton's probably the best fit offensively, maybe not the best fit defensively. Those are kind of the names out there. Like, the guard market isn't super well stocked right now on the trade market. I'll be interested to see if that changes over the course of the coming weeks. It could. It's not impossible. The next question, though, that I have for you is, did the Nets do well enough here for Dorian Finney-Smith? Let's just talk quickly about the Nets. This is just like a classic, you know, we're dumping, you know, an asset for, you know, picks and a potential second round flyer and Max Lewis. Did they do well enough here?
So people aren't going to like my answer here because they're going to say it's a cop out or whatever. I would say that is to be determined based on what they do with their salary cap space. Like, I've learned to try not to judge things too harshly until you see what front offices do with the cap space that they have. You know, I tried to tell Pistons fans this a couple weeks ago whenever they were freaking out about Paul Reed. And even before they end up bringing Paul Reed back and making a really smart salary cap maneuver. And we'll see if it even pays off, because that's the thing. Again, like, I can't judge what they've done with this cap space until I see what they get with this cap space. Does it prove to be beneficial or not and substantial? And so that's where I'm at with the Nets. My initial reaction is no, because it's like there's no future for D'Lo in Brooklyn. If anything, him and Cam Thomas are going to help them win games that they don't want to win because they're just going to go get buckets, which is a little bit scary if you're a Nets fan. But where it becomes something that I say, hey, that was really good value, was if they turn this salary cap space and whatever they have this offseason, and I end up liking what they do with that. And I have no idea how they're going to use that, right? Like, what if they use this cap space this offseason to facilitate a trade and bring in another pick or a flyer on a young guy or something like that? Now it's 3 second-round picks, a flyer on Maxwell Lewis, and another draft pick or young player or something like that you use for that's how you use this cap space. So this isn't done for them.
100%. And here's the other thing about this for people that are wondering, you know, why didn't they get another pick? You know, why didn't they get a first round pick for Dorian Finney-Smith? Everything like that. They have 3 first round picks this year. And 2 of those first round picks are probably going to be like in the bottom 5 of the first round. Do you really need 3? Because really Memphis is probably going to finish somewhere in the 20 to 30 range on draft night, right? Do you need like another first round pick in that range, especially when it seemed like you're probably going to have to send a second rounder or 2 back to Memphis in order to get that first round pick? And just, I don't know this. This is me speculating now based off of having like a pretty good feel for what Memphis typically does. I can't imagine that they would want to hamper their flexibility longer term by sending out a pick in a future draft for Dorian Finney-Smith, which really for them, in my opinion, would have been a little bit more of a luxury to have.
Can we talk about that one at some point before we move on? Because you text me that. I didn't actually see the report. Like, I just saw it from you texting me, and I found myself not excited about it. Like, it didn't feel as needle moving for the Grizzlies, even as I feel like
the Lakers.
Yeah. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Like, I just like, the Grizzlies don't need another rotation dude. As good as he is, they have rotation guys. Like, it just wasn't the team that made the most sense to me.
So the thing that they need, I think, are guys who can both defend and shoot at the same time.
Sure.
And I think that would have helped them. But like, he also has like a decent amount of overlap with Laravia, I think, positionally on defense, which is a little bit complicated because Laravia has actually been quite good for them.
He has
so
been. Yeah. And again, it's the same
it
thing.
It would have been complicated, I think.
If I'm worried about anything with the Grizzlies, I actually wrote this in my notes the last time I watched them play, was I'm a little more worried about who they have on the point of attack on the perimeter. The guys were saying that Dorian Finney-Smith probably doesn't guard the Steph Currys,
Correct.
the Kyrie Irvings, the SGAs, those type of guys is who I'm a little bit more worried. And like, no disrespect to Jalen Wells. Grizzlies fans are about to have they're going to hate me after this. I love Jalen Wells. He's been incredible. I'm a little nervous that the Grizzlies, and Marcus Smart probably ends up being that guy. I'm a little nervous if the Grizzlies go into the playoffs and rookie Jalen Wells is your primary point of attack defender.
Agree.
On SGA, Kyrie, and those type of players. He's been awesome. He's a rookie. And that's why the Dorian Finney-Smith didn't make as much sense to me, because he's not the guy that takes those matchups.
Yeah, I agree. And from the Nets perspective, okay, let's say that they enter this draft with 3 picks from 23, 25, and 28, plus the, pick that they hope turns into Cooper Flagg, right?
Yeah.
That's 4 first-round rookies coming into your team this year. 3 of those guys coming at the end of a first round that, like, you and I have an immense number of questions about right now.
Yes, we do.
Right? Like, we truly are hunting and searching to find players that, as people who, like, I literally do the NBA draft for a living. I am struggling to find guys worth taking in the 20s right now.
I hate when people ask me about my big board, because I don't love putting out some of the names I have in the first round right now. Right. That's where I'm at with it. It's the end of December, but yes, we have talked about this at length. While people call this a strong draft and a great draft, that's because of the few names at the top, not because of the depth, at least right now, 6 months before the draft. But right now, I've talked to a lot of people, including you and I, who are like, the first round is, even the lottery, even some of the lottery names are like, man, don't love having this guy this high. So yes, it's
a real question.
Real question.
It's a very real question. So if I'm the Nets, and you say, okay, we will give you 3 second-round picks. I haven't seen the value of these second-round picks. Have you seen like where they're slotted?
No, so that's what I was actually driving home when this trade happened. So I had not had a time. It made me realize I hadn't really looked into what they are whenever I saw your draft or your trade guide, and you said 3 quality quality second-round picks. And it made me realize, like, man, I didn't even look. Or do they happen to be from, some other team? Are they all Lakers second-round picks or whatever? So.
Yeah. So like, let's say for instance that the Grizzlies asked for a first rounder in return with like a second rounder, right? Coming back, right? The Grizzlies said like, okay, we'll give you this 2025 first, but we want your 2025 second. Well, like, okay, let's say the Grizzlies finish 24th, 23rd, 26th, something like that. The pick only ends up being the difference from, let's say, 34, 35, 36 to 24, 25, 26. And that's probably like worth, I don't know, 2 or 3 second round picks. I think at the end of the day, the value is probably a little bit better here, getting which Andrew, shout out GMAC, our fearless leader and truly just an icon, has sent us. It is, I'll just put this up on the screen because the Nets are very nice and have tweeted out exactly what the picks are. Which
Thank you, Brooklyn.
Rarely do, I feel like.
Very nice. Nicely, well done, Brooklyn Nets. Thank you very much.
It is a 2027 conditional second, and then 2030 and 2030 or 2031 unprotected seconds, which are really like potentially decent picks.
Yeah.
Depending on what you think about is going to happen at the end of the LeBron era here. So I actually kind of think that this deal tracks for me. This works a little bit better than the Grizzlies deal. If the pick was going to be like 2025 first for 2025 second plus Kennard and Conchar, I'd probably just rather have the expiring deals that are Russell and probably Lewis at the end of the day than Kennard, who's also on expiring, who, by the way, has a no trade clause because he'd be giving up his early bird rights or his bird rights, which means he had to accept this deal. And who knows if he would have accepted the deal. And Conchar, who's like on a bit of a longer term deal that I'm not super interested in.
$6 million for the next couple of years. Like, I think seeing these picks and all of that, like, I think this really comes down to what do they end up doing this offseason as they've created more cap flexibility because DFS had the player option. So that will probably ultimately decide whether I feel good about this trade or not for the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah. So in terms of grades for this, and we'll close up here.
Okay.
I would say for the Nets, this is like a solid, it's a good deal. It's like a B plus to me. Like it's not a home run. They didn't get a first rounder for Finney-Smith, which it seems like is what they wanted. I saw a question earlier in the comments, I think from you and Ross, maybe. Can we address that the Nets allegedly turned down 2 firsts for him last year? Sure, I will address it. That offer definitely never existed. I feel quite confident that 2 first round picks for Dorian Finney-Smith never existed. I'm not sitting here saying I know that for a fact. Don't aggregate that, but that's like one of those deals that, sounds like someone trying to leak for leverage at some point that weren't actually on the table, or it was like a first and a fake first rounder with like multiple seconds going back the other way. And it just wasn't, it wasn't nearly what the value was supposed to be. Right.
It's so important to remember that with first round picks. And even I forget, like we had to get reminded, or I shouldn't say I had to get reminded of this when we were talking about the Mikal Bridges trade. And, it was like, hey, these are all Knicks first round picks, most of them, not all of them, that are probably going to be at the end of the first round because the Knicks project to be really good throughout the rest of this time. And so that's what, whenever we see 2 first round picks, it's always important of the caveat of what kind of first round pick, what were the type of projections, where did they come from, all of that, because they are absolutely not created equally.
That's absolutely right. And the other thing that I will also just note here is like, be wary of the reporting on this stuff, right?
Sure.
Like always try to figure out where it's coming from. And like what team is putting out what, right? And for the Lakers,
grade on the, my quick grade on the Nets is B- with a chance for extra credit.
Yeah, sure, sounds right. And then for the Lakers, to me, this is like a B+, A-. Like it could be like an A or an A+ if they go out and they do another thing, and Finney-Smith becomes a piece that like really fits well with everything that they have. But if not, it's, just a really solid move that makes sense. We'll see if he opts in. We'll see if maybe they decline his opt-in and give him like maybe 3 years at $40 million, something like that. I think that's the kind of deal that would make sense for everybody if I was the Lakers. Try and get him locked in for a bit of a longer term. And, hopefully it makes sense with it, right?
Yep.
Hopefully he plays well and it's worthwhile. But yeah, this is the kind of situation that I think kind of works for everybody involved to me.
B+ was what I had in my mind as well. Just, I don't think it's crazy needle moving, but like you mentioned, it could seem more impactful if there's another move that comes. If another move doesn't come, I don't think this put them into crazy title contention or anything like that. I think as we talked through it, excuse me, I think what I'm most excited about is, okay, how much more usage does Austin Reeves get in this offense? And, what can JJ do to, make things creative in the half court? So I'm excited to see that. And I think he's a really nice fit that provides the floor spacing in the defense.
Before we move on to the Kings, let's talk about our good friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. We love PrizePicks here at Game Theory because of how easy they make it to get real money sports action. Look, next week, Week 18 in the NBA or in the NFL. There are always weird opportunities if you're on top of who's going to play, what backups are coming in. If you found an interesting
Play
player,
Carson Wentz. Play Carson Wentz.
If you think that Carson Wentz is going to go nuts for the Kansas City Chiefs, you can pick over his yardage total and make your pick in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinion into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay. Next up, the Sacramento Kings have fired head coach Mike Brown. We did a whole segment on the Sacramento Kings last week, right? That was kind of what we focused on last week. We talked a lot about the De'Aaron Fox rumors and that those were seemingly out there in a real way. We talked a lot about the fact that they're coming up on a real inflection point as an organization. Interesting situation to me. Now they have removed Mike Brown as their head coach. The Kings currently sputtering, I think, is the really like safest and softest way to put it. Maybe they have lost 6 in a row. They are 13-19. They still have a positive point differential, by the way, at 13-19, which is pretty funny. But when you saw the news that Mike Brown got fired, what was your immediate response?
I thought it was quick, I guess, is my immediate response. Early, quick. I hope it wasn't just in response or reaction to the loss to the Pistons, where they just absolutely blew the lead and blew the end of the game. I'm always a little more inclined to give people a longer leash to figure things out. And so I don't think I would have made this move this quick with a coach who over the last 2 years has done a good job. This was it's crazy how fast things turn, Sam. Like, this was like the fun-loving team, light the beam. Yeah. Everybody was on board. Like, it was amazing. It just, I was surprised it happened this fast, I guess. And yeah, like, I have questions about the roster construction of the team. Like, I love the individual parts. I don't know that it all fits together. So I would have given it a little bit longer, I think, is where I'm at. I know that's not always the best. People don't have that patience, but I think I would have.
Okay. So it's complicated. It's not super easy. I obviously saw that Michael Malone had real thoughts about this.
And honestly, JB did as well last night. I'm sure it didn't get the publicity that Michael Malone's did, but the first question that was asked of JB Bickerstaff before the Nuggets game last night was about Mike Brown, and JB had some very strong words about how he felt it was handled and treating people the right way. And I think to paraphrase, this isn't direct quotes, but like, it's a business. We understand that decisions have to be made, but you have to treat people with respect and treat people the right way. And he didn't feel like Mike Brown got treated that way with how this went down.
Look, Mike Brown had a practice and then met with the media and then got fired. Like, that's a joke. That can't happen. You have to make your decision and fire him before all of that happens. Like, you can't just have that be the thing. And honestly, just even from an organizational perspective, you probably want Doug Christie to get a practice with those guys. I know that he's coming from the bench right now, but you want him to be the lead voice for a practice, right? So bad across the board in terms of the way that this went down. I don't think anybody is going to defend the way that this went down.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what Michael Malone was frustrated by. Certainly part of what JB Bickerstaff was frustrated by. My immediate response here is, I think Mike Brown is a good coach. I think he's been a good coach for the Sacramento Kings up until this year. And it is very clear that if you listen to his press conferences, and I know the De'Aaron Fox one where he called out De'Aaron at the end of that game because De'Aaron like was insanely like helping and sagging way off of the shooter, and it was against the Pistons, and he fouls. Who did he foul? He fouled Jaden, right?
Jaden Ivey, yeah.
Yeah.
4-point play
fouls,
to win the game for the Pistons.
Fouls Jaden, 4-point play wins the game. Bad play by De'Aaron Fox, right? And Mike Brown calls him out afterward. Mike Brown, if you've listened to his press conferences, not just that one, but throughout the year, there have been a lot of these weird moments where it feels like either he's not getting through to the team or the team is like in some way, I don't want to say checked out, but like they're not totally hearing what he has to say, or it's just like it's not working in the way that it was the prior few years, right? The other thing that I think is really important to discuss here, if you watch the Brooklyn Nets right now, Jordi Fernandez is freaking awesome. Like Jordi Fernandez, to me, looks like a serious head coach. It looks like an awesome basketball coach. He's been on the Kings bench for the last couple of years here. And losing him, I wonder if that is a significant loss for the Kings that like nobody seems to really be discussing. Because like, look, people are going to look at the Nets record. They're 12-20 or whatever. But like when they had Schroeder, when they had Dorian Finney-Smith, like, look, everyone knew the assignment for the Nets here this year. We knew that these first 20 to 25 games were probably going to be the ones that told us, wait, like, are they good? Are they interesting? Are they are they on the right track? Right. I think from watching them play and watching how Jordi Fernandez like structured their offense, it looked really good from a structural perspective. And I was really impressed with him. Maybe that loss is a significant factor here that people are in some way, shape, or form underrating. But the big takeaway for me was like, if you watch these Kings games where things just look really disjointed all the time, and it looks less jointed than what it did the previous year, right? In the previous year before that, when they won 48 games. It felt like to me that, yes, you can blame the DeMar DeRozan signing. The problem is that you gave DeMar DeRozan an enormous deal, and you're not going to be able to move him right now. You can complain about the GM. I think Monty McNair's done a really good job, in all honesty, building this roster, taking them from where they were to where they are now. I think Mike Brown was a great hire when that happened. Also, sometimes you just have to make a change, and that sucks for coaches because they're often the ones who get the least benefit of the doubt and end up getting moved on from first. But it's part of being a head coach. And now Mike Brown gets to go sit around with $20 million in his bank account, like Monty Williams gets to sit around with $60 million in his bank account for the next little while. And I don't think anybody's upset, right? Like, it is what it is. So I understood this when I saw it. I've watched now probably a dozen Kings games this year. I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm, a Kings fan and I watch every game like Kings fans do. But when I've watched them, I have felt like they are more disjointed previously than they have been. And I think it's probably worth a shakeup in some respect. And coach is probably the easiest way to shake it up in some respect.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of it. We just saw it with the Cavs. It happened in the offseason. Instead, they got rid of JB and then they bring in Kenny Atkinson, and that's been a really good move. And I think
and JB's done a great job in Detroit too.
Yeah, great point. Like, and JB goes there and he's exactly what Detroit has needed so far this year.
The point that I want to say is like, this doesn't make Mike Brown a bad coach.
Sure.
It just means that something wasn't quite right. And I think it was worth a shift in some respect.
Yeah, it could have been he just isn't the right coach for this team, this roster. And I'll be honest, like there are things that I haven't agreed with. Like, listen, I hate what they've done with Keegan Murray, to be honest with you. I don't like it.
Bryce, what did we talk about when the DeMar deal happened?
Yeah,
I was in favor of it to some respect, right? Like I thought it was a deal that, look, it's worth a risk. Because really, like this is the other thing with the Kings, with the way that this roster build happens. The way that this roster is built with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Fox having 2 years left and not being willing to extend with you, you have to take a risk.
sure.
Like you have to take a big gamble in some respect. The DeMar deal it's not working out, right? Like we can just say like it's not working out. And a big thing that it's hindering, in my opinion, is Keegan Murray, because Keegan is just getting like zero usage and he's getting very little opportunity to really do anything. And Keegan hasn't played great. I think that like you could look at this and say it's probably like a crisis of role. Him being in an extension year, right? Where like in the summer he's eligible for a big extension and losing role in that year. Like if I was a player, I'd be pissed about that. Right. And I'm not saying he is or isn't. I'm just saying that like, that is something that would be a very human instinct to have. But the way that this roster is built, and when you're going for like a modicum of just frankly lack of ineptitude, which is what the Kings had been for so long, if you want to try and contend, you have to try and do it with like a relatively big move. I still don't like the DeMar deal ended up being wrong. I don't know if I hate the process behind it, given what they had, even if it was wrong at the end of the day, because if you have Sabonis at center, you have Fox at point guard, you have to be so far and away better than everybody else offensively to make it work. And at the end of the day, like this just hasn't settled yet in a way that's worked.
Yeah, and I wanted to make that point as well in terms of I think it shows how hard it is to make that next leap for teams. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And eventually, like you said, teams are going to there's always one or two teams that is in it. Like, do we go for it? Do we not go for it? It's like you have to, or you run out of that rope. Like you run out of your opportunity to do it. The other thing I don't like about Keegan is I think Keegan's a good defender. I don't think he's the level of defender they're trying to play him as. And so I get very frustrated watching.
Not unfair.
I think he's the second best defender on your team, not the primary of every other team's best player, and he has to go guard that guy. I don't think he's that level. I think Keegan's role is the second best offensive player, and I think he would be better offensively if he wasn't chasing those guys around and having to do all of that, which I think my biggest thing is, I want them to start Keon Ellis. Like, I don't, why am I wrong? Why am I wrong?
It's genuinely the way that they utilize Keon Ellis is one of the most dumbfounding things in the league.
I don't understand.
To me, he has been genuinely like quite good this year. He's super active defensively. He's tough. He's physical. Even though he's skinny,
shots,
right? Like
he
makes shots. He's kind of what this team needs. And by the way, here's the real answer. Like Devin Carter just dropped like 29 in his G League debut last night. Like Devin Carter is going to step in and be like immediately valuable for this team. I think Devin Carter is an awesome player. I had him in my top 8, I think last year in the draft. He's a fantastic player that I think is going to help them. But like to not use Keon Ellis before you get Devin Carter, it made no sense to me whatsoever. Like, I don't understand. Maybe there's some internal dynamic I'm missing. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know everything that's going on in Sacramento right now, but like, I don't get it. I just don't.
Here's what makes it more frustrating to me. You will not find a bigger Malik Monk fan than me. Like, I promise. I love him.
But Malik has no problem coming off the bench.
Exactly. So why are you starting him when Keon Ellis makes more sense? It doesn't make any sense to me when Malik thrives coming off the bench. So unless Malik went into the front office or the coaching offices or whatever and said, this is BS, it's time for me to start, which we'll never know, and I assume doesn't happen or didn't happen, then this just doesn't make sense to me. It's one of those where I'm just like, I do not understand. All offseason, I was like, man, Devin Carter I had him number 10 on my board. Like, he may start for this team. I kind of like this pick. This is going to be nice. And then you have these guys off the bench. It's like, actually, Keon Ellis is sneaky. I think in my preseason predictions, he was one of those guys I thought was going to really like thrive in his role and would become one of those players that we knew around the league as not a star or anything like that, but just like he's perfect to supplement what Fox does, what Murray does, just let him guard the other team's best player and knock down open catch and shoot shots. And I feel like Keon Ellis can do that. And I've not been able to understand and figure out why they won't start him and put Monk back in the second unit where he thrives, like where he's been incredible.
Yeah, no, I don't get it either. It doesn't make any sense to me. Look, like it's a small thing. Like, look, we're talking about like, upping Keon Ellis from what, like 13 minutes a game to 25 minutes a game. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
But it is like a weird indicative thing of like there being a disconnect between the coaching staff and like what's happening on the court when those guys are in the game. And it's why I'm just Keegan Murray stagnating, the Keon Ellis thing, Kevin Huerter stagnating, by the way.
Yeah.
Like you can point to the players on the court, DeMar DeRozan taking up usage, De'Aaron and Sabonis just kind of taking up a lot of oxygen within that offense, Malik taking up a lot of oxygen within that offense. But like, I don't know, man. Like it feels like a lot of these guys stagnated when they shouldn't necessarily have stagnated to me. Even though I've always had like real questions about like the upside of this team. Like I don't think it's a secret that I'm not a Domantas Sabonis guy, right? I don't really get it in terms of him being, considered like a top 15 guy in the league from some people, right? I probably wouldn't have him in like the top 30 guys that I would take, in all honesty. But like he's a physical player, he's tough, he's strong, he's a great rebounder. I just don't love him defensively is my issue, and I want a center who can at least like who has a chance defensively to anchor. Like Şengün moves better than him. Like he just is more mobile than what Domantas is defensively, right? So I've never been like an enormous Sabonis guy. And De'Aaron's a great, like I love De'Aaron. I think De'Aaron's like a real top, 25-ish guy in the league, right? But I think he's that. Like, I think he's a great number 2. I don't think he's a number 1. But the thing is that, like, when you have 2 number 2 guys, right? Like, Sabonis is probably a top 60 player in the league. And you have Fox and you have Malik Monk and you have DeMar and you have Keegan and all these dudes. Like, I was always just in favor. I'm not sick of it, but like, I understand why teams just like sell out to win titles all the time because, glory and, what are you playing for if you're not trying to win a title? I think that it's like completely reasonable for a Kings team to just go, hey, let's just be fun good for a while. We've been really catastrophically bad as an organization for a fucking decade. Let's give the fans something to enjoy for a while. And even this team, like being 13-19, up until this little 6-game stretch, has been like generally fairly enjoyable to watch. Right. So I never saw the upside with this Kings team. Like I didn't see them as like a potential conference finalist, even if things went right. But I think there's something to be said for winning like 44 to 52 regular season games and being fun and just like a cool team to watch. And, that's okay. And, maybe they can figure out what to do, like, and shift and figure things out. But like, look, obviously this is now they're on the clock organizationally with Fox. That seems abundantly clear now. You've just fired the coach. He's been pretty clear. It feels like to me that they're on the clock. He wants to contend. So you're now on the clock basically until February 7th when the trade deadline is. And then you're on the clock from February 7th thereafter this season to try to prove to him to sign an extension and to say to him and challenge him to be an all-NBA player. Because if he's not an all-NBA player, he's probably not signing an extension at the end of the day. Because that's when he goes from the 25 to 30% salary cap window where he can sign an extension that is like the Jaylen Brown extension where he can bet on himself and hopefully become like the guy that will stay with the Kings forever. He's been great in the community. He's been great with everything. De'Aaron's like known around the league to be just like a really, really good dude. But he does hold this organization's kind of cards like in his hand now. And he has to figure out what he wants. They have to figure out what they want to do with him. And really it's going to come down to how they play over the course of this next month and change as to whether or not it makes sense to move him at this deadline or to wait until the offseason.
And to your point about the change, I think
or maybe they don't have to move him. I want to include that too.
Is the upside is like one of the best offenses in the NBA. I think that's what the upside has to be with this team is you're just so good offensively. And I know they would do it in a different way than the team I'm about to mention, but like you're like the Pacers where it's just like, we're going to be really good offensively, really like just tough to guard. And then we'll play enough defense. And then I know Indiana got the right matchups and injuries throughout their path last year, but that could happen in the Western Conference. You get the right matchups, maybe somebody goes down, whatever, and then that gets you your path throughout the playoffs. And they're 8th right now in offensive rating, but you don't watch them and quite think just like juggernaut offensively in terms of that. So maybe a change to your point with like Jordy, maybe he was the back. I don't know enough about the dynamics of coaching staffs, who's calling the defense, offense, all of that. Maybe this change will allow them to do that. Maybe they'll go from 8th in the NBA in offensive rating, and 3 months from now, they'll be 3rd in offensive rating, still be at 16th defensively. And we're like, man, that's not going to be a fun team to play in the playoffs. If your best player is injured or, whatever, you catch them on the wrong night, you have the wrong matchup. This is a team that could, make a series out of it and they go on a little run. To me, that's the upside. That's not something you necessarily want to like hang your hat on and live and die by, but it could make for a fun playoff run, one out of every couple of years. So that would be
the Golden State series with the Kings was amazing. Like that was one of the more fun playoff series that I've watched in a long time back in, 2023. So look, like there's upside for fun with this team. And again, if you're a Kings fan, like we said this last week, so like I don't really want to belabor the point, but like you're rooting for a team that has a bunch of really good dudes on it, like De'Aaron, Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, like Devin Carter is like an amazing dude. Like that in and of itself, and that's not to say that the other guys aren't, but like there's the guys that like I know from having talked around the league, like are like truly like amazing dudes. Like having that and like getting to root for a cool like team that is enjoyable to watch after you've been in the wilderness for a decade and a half post Chris Webber, where the team was going to fucking move if not for Vivek coming in. And then Vivek is like the super meddlesome owner, right? And that's frustrating. I just feel like there's something to be said for being decent, and like I'm for it. I'm for them like continuing down this road of being decent for a while. But also like you can't end up with nothing. Like if Fox like says, I'm not re-signing, you have to move him this summer at the end of the day. If Fox says that like you have to, or like if Fox tells them in February while they're 20-28 or whatever it is, if they do get there, right? Hey, I'm not re-signing. Like that's a whole other issue that you have to consider down the road. But I think that this like even more so now officially puts them on the clock to figure out what they're going to do here moving forward.
Yep.
Okay. Next up, we're going to get into the Christmas games here. To me, the biggest news of the Christmas games was unfortunately actually that Luka Doncic got hurt.
Yeah.
And is going to miss now seemingly at least a month. He's being reevaluated in a month following his calf injury. I don't know how you feel about Dallas, but like I have felt like for a minute now that Dallas is probably, I think I would say the second best team in the West. Oklahoma City's the best team, but like they're the second best team in the West, and a team that like would have confidence going into a series with Oklahoma City after having beaten them last year.
Yeah.
Now they're going to be without Luka. So like, I kind of thought this team was on track to be the number 2 seed in the West, basically. And now without Luka for over a month, it feels like that is very, very, very much in peril.
Yeah. I mean, they're only one loss less than the Nuggets in 7, 2 than the Timberwolves in 8. Like the West is very tight right there, with the Lakers, the Clippers, the two aforementioned teams. So it's going to be a big month for Kyrie. And I think Kyrie's up for the challenge. Like, I think Kyrie has been incredible this year. I've kind of tried to push that narrative as I've watched his games. And I think it's going to be a big month for a guy like PJ Washington to have really knockdown shots. I think it's going to be interesting to see if Derek Lively has a little bit else that he can provide on the offensive end. The guy that I think it's actually really big for, and unfortunately he's about to miss 3 games, I think is Najee Marshall. I think Najee Marshall becomes very important for this team with Luka out, because Najee can do some stuff off the bounce and attack the defense and pass a little bit and do a little bit of that. You know, the other guy is actually Spencer Dinwiddie as well. It's going to be some big minutes for Spencer Dinwiddie. So those guys in increased roles, one level up. I have no doubt that Kyrie can be the best player on this team and lead this team to a successful month of basketball without Luka. I wonder about, does Clay start to try to do too much, right? Like, does he try to go back to 5 years ago Clay and, jacking up shots he's not capable of right now? So I'm a little more nervous about how do these other guys fit into these roles over the next month to keep them in the top really 6, I think is where they probably need to be when Luka returns.
So Luka so far this year, by the way, has already missed 10 games.
Yeah.
He's just like straight up not going to be eligible for All NBA. This year. That is one thing worth noting here. He's just not going to get back within 7 games, it feels like. And then, like, you would probably want to get him rest throughout the year. He's just going to have to kind of live without making All NBA this year. Player participation is what it is, right? This year without Luka Doncic on the court, do you know what the Mavericks net rating is?
No Luka. Negative 1.2.
It's actually plus 2.4.
Wow. Okay.
Part of this is like they just obliterate teams with Luka on the court. They're a plus 9.3 with him on the court with a 121.7 offensive rating and a 112 defensive rating. They're just like ridiculous when he's on the court. Completely ridiculous. But when he's off, like, they've been competitive. They've been fairly okay. Part of that is Kyrie, right? Like, Kyrie is able to stagger in those minutes, right? And then when you lose Luka, like, from the lineup completely, you then have to move Kyrie up to like the primary role. And like you said, exactly, somebody has to step up and be that like secondary creator, right? Who can that be? Najee is like a guy that probably can take some offensive load, I would say. Kyrie is going to have to be the primary. Dinwiddie, stepping up would be really nice. I would be like somewhat interested in Jaden Hardy minutes and just seeing what this looks like.
Yeah.
Just give it a whirl. Maybe. He has not been great this year, to be clear. Like, he is taking a bit of a step back, in all honesty, it feels like to me. But I'm like a little bit interested in seeing if he can handle some of it.
What I don't want to do, is I don't want him to put Quentin Grimes in that role and disrupt what looks like some quality rhythm that he's found in his current role, shooting 42% from 3, 48% from the field, 4 rebounds. Like, I think he's been impactful for them. I think you run the risk, like you say, okay, and over the next month, let's see if you have a little more in you, Quentin. Let's go out there and you play on ball some and some of that, and then you just completely throw off that flow. So there's certain guys I would rather they keep in their roles that they already have. And so I would like for them to be calculated, where I actually agree with your Jaden Hardy point of, okay, let's take this guy who really doesn't have a role right now, may be able to do this. It's kind of his mentality. Let's put him in this role for the next month and see if he can flourish, because he's not really been in the rotation anyway. And it's not going to disrupt any sort of flow or chemistry he has whenever we are fully healthy.
Yeah. And look, like, Grimes this year has been worth 2 wins already. He's a plus 1.6 in terms of EPM. Basically back to that like Knicksy level that he was at in 2023, where he was one of the better like 2 guards, but better. I mean, like he was definitely a starting quality 2 guard in the league. So I agree with you. I would keep him in that role. I think that's where he would be best suited to thrive right now. And he's been quite good in that respect. Yeah. I mean, look, it's just going to be hard. They're going to have to fight through this for a month. The issue for them is that, like you said, the West is just so bunched right now that if their bench unit like does really take a dive and really, really struggles, they could end up kind of falling a bit of a ways here. They are 3.5 games up in terms of being in the top 8. They are what is that? I can do math. They're 2 games up in terms of being in the top 6 right now. So they do need to hopefully be able to stem the tide and like stay in the top 8, I would say, while Luka's out. And then when Luka comes back, like I think they're going to be totally fine. Another name would be Dante Exum, right? Exum's been out for a minute here.
Yeah.
And I think Exum can do some stuff too on the ball. Exum is, a really, really valuable player. But to me, I would say that, it's going to be rough for a minute here when Kyrie is off the court, is what it feels like to me.
So looking at their schedule, I think what's going to be important is you don't drop the games against teams you just shouldn't be losing to. So you got to go beat the Kings, who just fired their coach, because then you play Houston, Cleveland, Memphis, the Lakers, but then you get Portland. So you have to beat Portland. Then you get Denver, you get the Pelicans. You have to beat the Pelicans. Then you get OKC, but you Charlotte. Like you have to go win. I don't want to keep going through it, but I think people understand my point. You have to win those games against Portland, against Charlotte, against even Detroit. Whenever you played, I think the Pistons come up in a couple more games, because there's some really tough games in there that it's going to be hard to go and beat Oklahoma City, even Denver. Those are going to be hard games to win without Luka. So you can't drop. I think Boston comes up end of January, because we're looking probably February 1 for Luka. So that's
a hope, it feels like at this point, but who knows?
So like, again, you get Detroit in there, you get the Pelicans, you have a Wizards game, but you have to take care of business against those teams. And then hopefully you can steal a couple of them against those really good opponents.
Yeah. Think that is right. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about on Christmas? This was a really fun day. Basketball. I had a great time. Warriors Lakers was a blast.
Yes. Josh Hart was awesome at the end of that game.
Let's hold on the Knicks so that we can bring GMAC in at the end and just like kind of filter that through trivia. Let's talk about Lakers Warriors first. Okay. Because that was the best, honestly, like one of the best games I've seen all year.
I mean,
straight up.
When somebody answers bang bang, Steph Curry bang bang, and ruins that moment, you did something right. And Austin Reeves did that on Christmas Day. That's big time.
So I'll talk about the schedule for what the show is going to be this week, but we'll be doing a post-game theory on Austin Reeves on Christmas because that was enjoyable. Reeves was ridiculous in that game. But yeah, just the back and forth. I think the Lakers were up like 8 or whatever with 2 minutes left. And Steph drills, I think he drilled like 4 threes in the last 4 minutes. And the 1 3 in the corner is one of the craziest shots I've ever seen him make. Just truly point blank. I think it is the most insane shot. I don't know if it's the most insane shot. It is up there for the most insane shot that I've seen Steph drill. And then he comes down the next possession. They run like a 6 set to get him loose. Christie and Reeves kind of break down in a switch. Christie calls out a switch when Reeves is like stuck on a screen already. And I mean, my goodness, you leave Steph wide open from 30 feet. It's just curtains. Like, unbelievable game. Then Reeves comes down, hits that layup. Warriors out of timeouts, and Steph almost drills it from like 70 fucking feet.
That would have been the most Steph thing ever. Like it would have been amazing.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. like, I don't even know what to take away from that beyond I had a great fucking time watching that game.
Listen, I don't need to get it like whatever about the schedule and it was a great day of basketball.
It
The
was a
Knicks
great day of basketball.
Wemby went crazy in the first half against the Knicks. They come back. I know we'll let GMAC talk about that. Even the Wolves Mavericks game, like it was like, oh, this sucks. Like Luka gets hurt, like man. And then it still ends up being a quality game. I actually missed the second half of the Sixers Celtics game. I had to go do Christmas Olympics with my in-laws. And when the in-laws say you come play games, you go play games.
Absolutely.
To happy wife, happy life. But then got to witness that Warriors Lakers game. That was awesome. I think I fell asleep for the Nuggets Suns. I'm getting old, Sam. It's a struggle.
It's okay.
It's a struggle.
It happens.
But
I watched honestly, like I watched most of these. I watched the Knicks-Spurs in the morning, but
Yeah.
like I watched most of these like the next day. Like I was not really engaged on Christmas Day itself. Unbelievable basketball though.
Yeah,
like
it was-
every single game had something. It felt like to me.
I really want GMAC to come on and talk about how Mikal Bridges earned all 5 first-round picks he was traded for in one singular game on Christmas Day. Like I did not know this. Sam, did you know this? Not only do they give trophies and do they put banners for the in-season tournament, you also get trophies and banners for winning on Christmas Day. And Mikal Bridges apparently hung a banner in Madison Square Garden in a singular game on Christmas Day. And GMAC, you filthy animal, he earned all 5 of those first-round picks with that performance.
That's right. Keep the change, little brother. Okay? Enjoy yourself and all those picks in the late 20s. Brooklyn. Mikal Bridges, Knicks legend Mikal Bridges, by the way. Okay,
Alrighty.
let's get his full title. Can we just go through a history lesson real quick? Can we just go quick history lesson for the game theory audience? Okay, because I hate when I come on here and it's a national audience, right? And I make it all local. But I'd like to take us back in time to 7 games ago, where we did a 40-minute session on what's wrong with the Knicks. Guess what? They haven't lost since. So apparently nothing is wrong with the Knicks. They just needed us to bully them a little bit because bullying works.
But bullying works when your schedule recently is the Wizards, the Magic without Paulo and Franz.
Did we not
Spurs,
send
the
Minnesota
Raptors,
into
the
an
Pelicans.
identity crisis tailspin? Okay, looking good, Julius. I do wish you
I
well,
love it
Julius Randle.
so much.
I apologize that Minnesota suddenly got internet and discovered how to use AI and put you in all the weirdest situations. So,
Oh my god, I love it so much. Yeah, I mean, look, let's talk about the Knicks real quick, and then we'll talk about Wemby. So, the Knicks had an amazing game from Mikal Bridges. That is the best he's played since he's been in New York. And frankly, like the thing that we did talk about when we talked about like Mikal and like the struggles on defense and what that means, and I still have some worries about Mikal on defense, but I think they're utilizing him a bit better. I think they're using him more on wings as opposed to on guards. You know, GMAC and I talked about this before the show for a while. Like we'll maybe talk about it a little bit on the show, but I think that this utilization of Mikal is much better in a much smarter way to get the most out of him. And on top of it, we talked about the fact that the offense has been coming along well before this run. Like I would say that the 5 games before this like easier schedule that the Knicks have played in their last 7, he actually had been coming along offensively. Like the offense hadn't really been the worry. It's the defense that had been where I was at with the Knicks against good teams, particularly. And the Timberwolves are unfortunately not a team that can take advantage of the issues that the Knicks have defensively, because Jaden McDaniels, Randall, Gobert, Conley, like these guys are such a catastrophe together offensively right now that it's just really, really hard for them to actually like functionally work things together. So I'm fascinated to see this game at the end of the week against Oklahoma City, to see what it looks like.
that's the one. Yeah.
I'm really interested to see how this all comes together for the Knicks. But Mikal getting confidence and coming together over these last like 12-ish games, I don't know what the exact number is, that is like maybe the most important thing that's happened for the Knicks here. In the, I would say in the last month, the overall most important thing is that the Towns deal like clearly worked and clearly is like a home run for them. It's more that they also now have Mikal as like a real fourth option, which is valuable for them, potentially third at times.
There are, look, Tom Thibodeau, offensive genius is not something I'm ever going to take that leap to, but this team was fourth in offensive rating 2 years ago. They are second in offensive rating this year. They have, I mean, they just, when they get rolling, it's a locomotive that doesn't get stopping. And what they've now added over the course of the last month is some play calls for Mikal, just to get, it's kind of the RJ package, except instead of trying to get him downhill with those pistol sets, it's trying to just get him into the mid-range because there's nobody at the rim. And I heard this analogy. I'm going to use a football analogy. So Eli Manning played like every game that he ever started in the NFL, right? Like he just like was never hurt. And someone came on our show this week and compared Mikal Bridges to Eli Manning, because Mikal like never goes to the rim when he gets into the restricted area. It's a fadeaway. Like he is going to fade away any chance he gets. And Eli Manning, anytime he saw pressure, it's a throw off his back foot. Yeah. And it's like, oh, so to avoid contact, Eli Manning was able to play every game and may or may not have made some bad throws in the process. Mikal avoids contact with this fadeaway that he's just perfected throughout the course of this season. Not to mention just like the weird thing with his jump shot seems to just be over. He's just slowly going up and up, whether it be the corners or above the break or straight on.
The hitch is still there, but like it's still like he's kind of figured it out. The thing that I always talked about with that is just that like he's the kind of shooter that just has like an immense amount of touch. So I figured the shot would come around eventually. Like he's always been we talked about this when we talked about Mikal. He's always been a tinkerer with his shot, like throughout the course of his career, going back to like really like from Villanova to the point in the NBA. Like every year he's been in the NBA, I feel like he's kind of tinkered with the shot a little bit. So he's such a good shooter that I figured that like, okay, yeah, he'll have colder stretches while he's still fine tuning it, but it's probably going to be fine at the end of the day.
Well, here we are. Like you said, Friday against OKC, I think is the big test where, all jokes aside, their schedule did get a little bit easier. The Minnesota game, I am taking that as they didn't just go in and beat Minnesota. That game was over in the second quarter, and they punked them, which is what I didn't think this team, I should say, was capable of. And then, look, this will be a perfect transition for you guys to talk about Wemby. You'll appreciate this, Sam. I compared, because I did the post game for Knicks Film School on Christmas, and I compared Wemby in year 2 to the dinosaur that they created in Jurassic World. Remember when it gets out and Chris Pratt has the line of like, this thing is seeing its environment for the first time. It is learning on the fly where it stands in the food chain. We don't want to be here when it finds out. So NBA, win your championships now before Wemby realizes where he is on the food chain. And they were still able to withstand that to come away with the win. I get it at home, but like Tibbs also didn't play Towns and Brunson down the stretch, which was insane for 5 minutes, and it worked. Yeah. You know,
well, and you got the crazy Josh Hart stretch at the end as well with his like 3 or 4 offensive rebounds. That was amazing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, when it was hard for Wemby to not be the takeaway of that game on some level, if only just because he was so ubiquitous, like everywhere in that game. Drilled 6 threes, was a monster defensively in the first half, I thought particularly. Was passed the ball incredibly well. He had like those crazy lobs to Sohan, one of which worked, one of which Sohan like tried to throw down like a tomahawk and front rimmed it. Unbelievable fun basketball game to watch, in large part to like when anybody that's like bitching about the NBA and like bitching about watching Victor Wembanyama, you're out of your fucking minds. This dude is 7'5". He is out here drilling threes. Think about like if we told people 30 years ago there would be a 7'5" dude who can run the court, can basically play in ball screens, can break down dudes in ISO and takes 10 threes a game and drills them. And oh, by the way, he's the best defensive player in the league. People would think you're talking about a legitimate alien, like something that we have never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something we've never seen before. Anybody that's just like, oh yeah, like he takes too many threes. And like, look, I'm somebody that thinks that like there is some scope within that offense for him to attack a little bit more often. I think they do consistently probably need a guy who can like get paint touches. And I think that Wemby on some level is a good enough passer and can break down bigs well enough to be able to get paint touches. But like, I thought the Christmas game, for instance, where he took 16 threes, if I remember correctly, maybe 13, whatever it was, most of them just came in flow, like off of pick and pops. Like it was pretty normal to me. So I don't know, man. It felt pretty good. It all felt great to watch. I had a blast watching it. That was the game I watched on Christmas. And I was just like, oh, holy shit. This fucking rules. This is so cool.
Bryce?
I just wanted to go play him in chess.
Wasn't that cool? Dude went
was
to
cool.
Washington Square
Good for
Park to play chess, with which, of course, we rational Knicks fans started the propaganda. It's like, all right, so when is he a free agent? Like, how many years do we have to wait? Can we Photoshop him in the jersey now? Not that we don't love Karl Anthony Towns, but they could be on the court together. Why not?
Towns has played with a giant Frenchman before.
Exactly. And this one can space the floor too.
Can shoot. Yes.
Exactly.
Oh
yeah.
God.
No, that was awesome.
Spurs fans are going to literally murder all of us.
By the way, congratulations to Bryce, because he won the Christmas Day game. The other Christmas Day game against Sam. The Chiefs beat the Steelers.
The Chiefs did beat the Steelers. It was not great.
Did they?
Yeah. The Steelers are a disaster right
Yes.
now. It's not a particularly enjoyable experience to watch the Steelers at this point. Look, anything else on Christmas? Like those were the two games. Like the 76ers also like figuring things out recently. That is something we probably have to talk about at some point on the show. I don't know that we need to dive super deep into it right now, but like winning now 4 of their last, or maybe 5 of their last 6 or something, or 7 of their last 9, 8 of their last 10, like whatever the numbers are, right? It does feel like they have started to slot some things into place now that Embiid and George and Maxey are healthy again. Beating the Celtics on Christmas Day, look, Celtics, not like totally at full health. Drew Holiday did not play in that game, right? Kristaps only played 13 minutes in that game. Still a really, really fun, enjoyable moment, I felt like, and a big moment for that organization to figure that out.
I'm going to let Bryce handle this, and the hater in me will not allow me to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers figuring it out. So I'll be back up for trivia.
What? Why?
That was awkward.
I also never know if you can actually hear me. It says you're in the show, everyone can see and hear you, and I'm like, is that true, or are they just trying to not? Yeah, I mean, this Sixers team, it will be interesting here moving forward. If they're getting scarily close in the standings and where they can start to make a run at this thing, and we know they have the talent with the big 3. So we'll see. We'll see if they can continue it. I wanted to look at their schedule here moving forward in terms of, it's still pretty very favorable. Yeah, Portland, Sac, Warriors, Brooklyn, Phoenix, Washington, Pelicans, Magic, before they have OKC and the Knicks. So they could continue on a little run here.
I would expect that they do, and I would expect that they're going to be in the top
8.
I would say top 8,
Can
probably within the next 2 weeks. Maybe not quite the top 6 yet, but look, this team's going to be in the top 6 in the East. By the end of it. That's what it feels like. And that's why we haven't really panicked on them. As long as they're healthy, and they stay healthy, there just aren't enough teams, frankly, in the East to be able to stop them from getting there.
That's every time I look at the Eastern Conference standings, that's where I land as well. Like the top 5 I believe in terms of at least like regular season, they're going to be in the playoffs, all of that. I kind of like the Hawks. I'm not sure where Miami's at. Like the vibes there with all of that is kind of weird. Indiana, we've talked about that. The Bulls, like the Pistons are the 10 right now. Like they're not there yet. Like Philly's better than all of those teams. I find it hard to believe they don't get to the 6 as long as they keep some sort of health here moving forward. There's just too much talent. Now, I don't think they break the top 4. Like, I don't think they're going to do that. Orlando won again today as we're recording without those 2 guys. Yeah. And it sounds like Paolo's kind of on his way. And then, you'll get Franz after that. And then that team's back into it. So I don't think they break into the top 4, maybe not even the top 5, depending on what Milwaukee does. But I think they probably end up in that top 6. So,
yeah, fun team. We'll do that. We'll do a deeper dive on them a little bit later, maybe this week, but probably more like early next week. Okay. Andrew Claudio, it's time for you to come back up. It is time for Bryce Simon to take control of the show and do trivia.
All right.
Bryce.
I got you. We are going to stay with the Christmas Day games in some capacity. Just the teams, really. So we are staying with the same format we have been playing, guys. You guys understand this by now. I'm asking for 4 answers. You don't have to give them to me in order, anything like that. Some of these are going to be very obvious. That is the idea behind the game, to give you some points. Remember, the opponent can steal 1 point if you do not get all 4. Andrew, I will start with you. We will start with the aforementioned San Antonio Spurs New York Knicks game, and you will answer the question about the San Antonio Spurs, because why would I ask you a question about the Knicks? That's not fair. I would like for you to give me the top 4 point per game players on the San Antonio Spurs. Very straightforward. Well, real quick, 10 games played was the limit here. This is the cutoff. Keep that in mind. That is very important, because there are some guys that are like quite low in games played
now.
Yeah, like maybe 11, maybe 15, but I just cut it off at 10, so I didn't have to remember too many. So go ahead, Andrew.
Victor Wembanyama.
Victor Wembanyama is right. That is one answer.
Harrison Barnes.
That is incorrect. This is why I went to this one. This one is fun.
Great.
Harrison Barnes is 7th on the Spurs in scoring. Yeah. The actual point per game number isn't as bad as what that sounds like, though.
So my steal guess is going to be Vassell.
That is correct. Devin Vassell is 2nd. He has played 16 games.
Yeah, Sohan is also up there too. I just was more certain that Vassell had played the games.
So you gave me number 2 and number 3. I would love to see how many guesses to get number 4.
I'm going to say Champagnie.
Champagnie would have been my guess. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I think he's been really good this year. This is like every time I watch them play, I find myself writing in my notes, like, this is a guy that understands his role, thrives in his role. Like, he knows what the assignment is and he comes in and plays the assignment. It is Champagnie. So to back up Mr. GMAC, Vassell averages 15.4, second on the team. Harrison Barnes at 7th on the team is 10.3. So it fairly close.
Spread.
Yep.
Great.
Okay. We are tied 1-1 after that start. We are going to the New York Knickerbockers and Sam Vecenie. I would like for you to give me the rebound per game leaders on the New York Knicks. Top 4.
4 of them.
4,
okay. So
top 4.
Towns and Hart.
Karl Anthony Towns is number 1. Josh Hart is number 2. Again, I purposely, like, you can't go do this without not giving some away. I tried to pick ones where maybe the other names would be a little more difficult.
Jericho Sims.
Great guess. Not correct. Jericho is 5th.
Man.
So GMAC, you can steal 1 point here if you can give me number 3 or number 4 on the New York Knicks in rebounds per game.
And there's no minute limit, right?
There's no minutes. The only limit I put was 10 games played, which is not a great limit, but it's because it does include some guys who, whether this question or others, haven't played it, like Vassell, 16 games, right? I didn't want to do 20 because I didn't want to make it so. Almost for most of these, almost every player is. I don't think I had to exclude anybody. Like if so.
So I'm going to talk this out.
Okay.
Because it's between Bridges and OG for me for one of those spots. Or maybe
for what
both.
it's worth, my next two as well.
So the thing I'm getting hung up on is I'm trying to remember when Precious Achiuwa came back. And if he's played 10 games or not. So I'm going to say OG Anunoby because he's played enough at the 4, I think. And you tell me how wrong I am on this.
OG Anunoby is correct.
Okay.
Mikal Bridges would have been a bad guess. Mikal Bridges is 6th on this team at 3.3. Precious Achiuwa has played 11 games and averaged 7 rebounds per game. So Precious is actually 3rd on this list. OG 4th, Sims 5th, Mikal 6th.
Okay.
So we got one answer correct for GMAC. The score is 2-3. Is that what Sam has up here? Okay.
Yep.
All right, Andrew, you are going to be up with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So now we are moving to the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks. I am looking for 3-pointers made total.
Ooh.
3-pointers made total for the Minnesota Timberwolves, top 4 and made 3-pointers, not per game, not percentage, made 3-pointers on the season.
So let's start with Anthony Edwards.
It's a great start.
Taking 100 a game.
He makes them at a decent percentage as well.
Yes, he does.
Not the NBA leader, though. Thank you, Malik Beasley.
Naz Reid.
Naz Reid is on this list. That is 2 points for GMAC.
Just from I know he's struggled this year, but just from a sheer volume standpoint, I'm going to say Dante.
That's a great guess. I kind of wondered if Dante would get left out because the percentage is not great. He's up to 35 now. Slow start. Great guess. He's number 2 on this list.
Yeah, it's just all of it. His attempts are threes. It feels like so. And the last one, I'll say Julius.
4 for 4 from GMAC.
Oh,
what
GMAC?
Boom.
So Ant was the obvious one here. I thought maybe you guys would overthink Dante. And then 3 through 6 is 55, 52, 51, 48. That's Julius, Nas, and then Nah and Mike Conley. So I assumed I would get a Mike Conley guess, and I did not. So very well done, GMAC.
Thank you.
I did not think that would be the 4 for 4 in this one.
Let me give a shout out real quick because he also is a listener of Game Theory. Dane Moore of the Dane Moore podcast, who covers the Timberwolves for Blue Wire. The Knicks Timberwolves game a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago got me on a Dane Moore show binge because I was just so fascinated by what was going on there, and that may have informed a little bit of me knowing this and just how the rotations have been, and it's got me to watched all their 3-game losing streak, and then obviously the Christmas Day game and the crazy comeback against Houston. So shout out to Dane, and I guess shout out to the Timberwolves who helped me go 4 for 4 on this one.
So it's 6-3 for the audio only listeners. Sam is up with his team in this game between the Wolves and the Mavericks. So you get the Dallas Mavericks, Sam. I would like for you to name the top 4 assists per game leaders, assists per game on the Dallas Mavericks.
Luka, Kyrie.
There you go. Yep.
Okay. Now let's
Yep.
roll through this a little bit. Lively 3.
Lively is one of these. Very
Well
good.
done. Wow.
Well done. Yep. I should have known Sam would get his. I thought maybe.
Yeah.
Not.
Okay. Now we have to really stop and think here because Grimes can't pass. Washington isn't really a passer. I don't think Dinwiddie's played enough quite yet. I think I am just gonna say PJ.
Great guess, Sam Vecenie. PJ Washington is 5th.
Ooh.
Yeah.
GMAC. I almost ruined it. I almost said the answer and then realized GMAC has a chance to get a point.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is 5th. Oh wait. I wish I was paying more attention when you almost gave away the answer. Oh, no.
I didn't
You
give it
didn't
away.
give
Like
anything away.
I
yeah.
almost like I just was like
okay.
I said PJ was 5th, and then I almost said I almost then and I realized, oh, that's not the game. I need to shut up.
I will guess Dinwiddie.
Spencer Dinwiddie is the correct answer.
Okay.
So obviously Luka Kyrie, Dinwiddie's at 3.3, just 22 minutes a game. So like the idea tracks Sam. Lively 4th at 2.5. PJ, Najee, Clay, Grimes, next on the list, all just right around 2 per game. So that's where it got very difficult. So we are GMAC 7, Sam 6. We now have the Sixers and Celtics game. And GMAC, you will answer questions about your beloved Philadelphia 76ers.
Great.
Yes, sir. So I would
you
like
can't win with this one.
I might have to just pass. Yeah. I hate to say it, but my answer is pass. Yeah.
I would like for you to give me the top 4 rebound per game on the Philadelphia 76ers.
Okay. So let's start with Joel Embiid, who is a loser.
So I just want you to know. Hold on.
He's only played like 4 games. Wait, that's wrong, isn't it?
No.
He's
played
exactly 10.
exactly 10.
Okay.
I just want you to know how close you were before we
Oh
carry
my gosh, scared me.
Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Okay. So again, my first Joel Embiid, for the record, is a loser. I will also say Andre Drummond.
That's a great guess.
Who I got no beef with. He was there for like 10 minutes, so we're cool. Then
it gets really hard now.
Caleb Martin.
Great guess. Not
5th?
one
Okay.
of the answer. Caleb Martin is 6th. So
Okay.
Sam, can you give us one of the final 2 answers?
I'm gonna say Yabusele.
Great guess. He is 5th. At
Oh, no.
5.
Man, I've gotten 3 guys in 5th so far. That is gross.
So
Man.
Drummond's at 8, Embiid at 6.8. Oubre is at 5.7. Paul George is at 5.5. Yabusele is at 5.2. Caleb Martin is at 4.5. So Sam needs a good little run here, down 3 points. He gets the Boston Celtics, and we are back to totals. Okay. Emphasize totals. On the Boston Celtics, I would like totals free throws made. Total free throws made.
Tatum.
Yep.
Jaylen Brown.
There you go. Okay. Yep. There's your easy 2 points.
Oh boy.
Exactly.
Peyton Pritchard.
Great guess. He is 6th.
Oh, I was really hoping he was 5th. That just would have been funny to keep the bit going.
So one chance here for an extra point. GMAC.
I'll say Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday, you called it, is 5th on this. So Derek White
White was my next guess.
Is 3rd at 56. So for the record, Tatum 162, Brown 113, 3rd all the way to
56.
56.
That's
half
low.
cuts in half immediately. 4th in 11 games played.
Kristaps, yeah, I bet.
Kristaps.
Oh wow.
When you said 50, 53 or whatever, I was like, oh wow, like Kristaps is like very much in play right now.
Yes, Kristaps gets there. Okay. Our next game was the Lakers and Warriors, a game we talked a little bit about. GMAC, you will talk and answer questions about the Lakers. We are going back to the totals well. And I would like for you to tell me the top 4 players on the Lakers in blocks.
Anthony Davis.
Yep.
Yeah, the obvious one.
The obvious one.
Oh man. Who's on the Lakers?
There's another very obvious one.
Is there? Okay.
Some might know his name.
Andrew, come on.
Man, the Lakers are on way past when the Knicks are over. So it's so tough for me to tune in for this. Hold on. If it's LeBron, then great. But the whole conversation around him is about what he's not doing on the defensive end. So I'm going to say LeBron.
LeBron.
Okay.
That's the other very obvious
Okay,
one.
just making sure. Listen, a propaganda works sometimes in the NBA sphere. Okay. So if it's LeBron, then there's two. So there's no way it's Austin Reeves. There's no way it's the other white guy. Rui
is correct.
Okay, and then I need
Good
one
answer.
more.
That's
Need
a
one
great-
more.
Yeah.
Who's on the Lakers? This is really bothering me. DFS doesn't count yet, right? Because he technically hasn't played for the Lakers.
Correct.
Okay.
This is block totals, not blocks per game, right?
Block total. You could guess D'Angelo Russell if you wanted. I included him.
I put him in the Austin Reeves category. Honestly, I don't have a fourth guess, so I'll leave it for Sam. I'll say Austin Reeves, but I'll give
Austin
Sam
Reeves, not correct.
yeah. 13th on the team.
Sam,
I'm gonna say Jackson Hayes.
really good guess. Not correct. This one was crazy. So Anthony Davis, 61
Is
blocks.
it Coloco?
No, it's Max Christie.
Oh my God.
Wow.
AD at 61. We go 1/3, over 1/3 down to Rui at 18. LeBron is third at 17. Max Christie is fourth with 11.
Wow.
This team surprisingly actually isn't even bottom 10 in the NBA in blocks per game either. So thank you, Anthony Davis. Yep. Thank you, Anthony Davis. Okay, Sam, you are down 4. We need a big one here. We are going Golden State Warriors. They were the Lakers' opponent in that game.
Oh God.
Here's what I need.
Like 45 players that play.
Yeah, I made it easy. Okay. I want you to give me the top 4 Golden State Warriors this season in 3-point percentage. 3-point percentage, not makes, not attempts, not
Is
total.
there a minimum total?
There is no minimum, maximum, anything.
Okay. Give me a quick, like, is there somebody here that is like 3 for 5 from 3?
No. Like there's here's what every player on this list has taken at least 100. It's not like it's not
there we
like
go.
yeah, it's not
We're good.
even it's not Pat Spencer at 0 for 3.
Yeah. Okay. Steph.
It's a great guess. Steph is yes.
I was gonna say great guess.
Great guess.
Yeah.
Steph's
Not number one on the list, by the way.
yeah, second for me is gonna be Buddy.
Also a great guess. Also not number 1 on the list.
Okay. Third.
This is my favorite question because of these last 2 answers.
Okay, so I don't think he's first, but Draymond has made like a bunch of threes this year. I'm going to say Draymond.
Draymond also not first, but is on this list. Draymond has
Yeah.
shot the piss out of the ball this year.
Yeah, I think he's at like 43 or something right now.
Well, he's down to 39, but on almost 4 attempts. 39% on almost 4 attempts for Draymond Green.
Yeah, Dre has been quite good.
And
It's a
here's
Josh Hart thing. Yeah.
43% on corner threes, and that's 40% of his 3-point diet. Like really
Okay.
good stuff from Draymond shooting the ball.
Okay. So next little group here. We've got this is not a guess. I'm just talking through this. Lindy Waters, Moses Moody. Not going to say Kuminga. Not going to say either of the bigs. Definitely not Gary Payton. So it's probably Waters or Moody. I'm going to say Lindy Waters.
No. GMAC.
So then I'll say Moody.
You guys forgot a player.
Oh, so is it Pods?
No.
So is
No, he's
it?
been bad this year.
Andrew freaking Wiggins.
Oh, Wiggins. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wiggins has made shots this year.
The
I still would have gone
disrespect of
Waters
An-
over Wiggins, but yeah.
I think Waters over Wiggins in general is probably just based on what Waters is as a player, but Wiggins has been really good this year. He's averaging 17, shooting 41% from three. So
I'd like
Wiggins
to
has
issue,
been genuinely really good.
like to issue an apology to my fellow Andrew Wiggins. We got to be better on that. I apologize.
Disrespect.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Andrew, you can end the game here.
I can.
Yeah.
I got to know the Nuggets and the Suns, but
So
whichever team I get.
Yeah, Nuggets and the Suns. Everybody, the score is 12-11. GMAC is up by 1. If he went 4 for 4, the game would be over. We are going Denver Nuggets. We are going free throws made total free throws made. Okay.
This feels doable.
Okay. Nikola Jokic.
It's always a good guess when it's the Nuggets or the NBA at large.
Jamal Murray.
Correct.
Okay. Russell Westbrook.
Great guess.
Okay. And this is for the win.
This is for the win.
So Gordon's been out. It's either Braun or a Michael Porter Jr. All right, I'll go Michael Porter Jr.
Michael Porter Jr. is 5th.
Oh God.
Sam, this is a big
Sam.
point. Sam is down by 4. Sam is down by 4. This would be a huge get, so he doesn't have to run the table on his son's question.
I'm not totally sure it's Brown. It might still be Aaron Gordon, I feel like.
Oh, I didn't factor in that it could be him. I figured he's been out forever.
I'm still going to say Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon's my answer.
Aaron Gordon is incorrect. It is Christian Brown.
Oh, man.
Christian Brown is 3rd, actually. So, all right.
I tried to overthink it, probably. That's on me.
All right, Sam. This is, you got to run the table. You have the Phoenix Suns. We are going Phoenix Suns, and we are going rebounds per game. Plain and simple, rebounds per game.
Nurkic.
Nurkic is 1.
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant is number 2. You have 1-2.
Devin Booker.
Devin Booker is not on
Wow. He's averaging over 5, isn't he?
He is actually under 4 right now.
Really?
So Booker is at the lowest point of lowest point of his career since his 2nd year in the NBA.
So for what it's worth, like I didn't have a 4th here. I probably would have said, doesn't matter. Andrew's won already.
Yeah. Go ahead. Guess.
My 4th would have probably been Plumlee, I guess.
Plumlee was 3rd on the list.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have had another name? GMAC, you have a name?
I would have went Royce O'Neal with my steal.
Royce O'Neal is 4th. Yeah. So Nurkic, KD, Plumlee, Royce O'Neal.
So Andrew wins. We're going to give
wins.
Andrew that extra point.
Heck yeah.
16-13.
8th straight win for the New York Knicks. That's right.
Oh, goodness. All right. Recommendation corner here. Andrew.
Yes.
Well, no, hold on. Let's go to Bryce because Bryce's will be shorter. Bryce, did you watch any movies or read any books or see anything worth recommending over this beautiful Christmas break at your in-laws?
Sam, I haven't read a book in like 5 years, so no on the book. I've not watched a movie, but Ranny did get me to watch the first episode of Cross. I believe it's
Netflix?
Amazon Prime. Yeah, not my fault. Yep. Amazon Prime. Very good. Has me intrigued. I'm excited to continue it here over break. Like I said, I have a week off from school this next week. She's off till after the new year. So I think we'll have some time to get into that series. So Cross on Amazon Prime, 1 episode in, but definitely has me intrigued.
Andrew, Claudio, what did you see over the last week?
So I'll leave the one we both saw to you, Sam.
Yeah.
And I'll just say I
Fucking ripped.
finally saw Nora, and it's outstanding. And
Is it okay?
yeah, she's really good. And I don't know if I just went in thinking it was something else, but I echo the Uncut Gems comparisons that I
Yeah.
was on the edge of. There's a point in the movie where it gets cranked up to a 12, and then you're on the edge of your seat for the remainder of it. And knowing the entire layout of the area that they're in was also a bit helpful. And from a proximity standpoint, it's like the Safdie brothers when they did Good Time, and that thing ends up at an amusement park where I had my 10th birthday. Like
That's amazing.
That's one of those things where it's like, oh, I know exactly where they are. I know exactly how they got there. That's Adventureland. And so when they're in Coney Island in this, it's like, oh yeah, the familiarity just like speaks to me. So yeah, Nora is outstanding.
Okay, so Bryce, I was wondering if you've watched The Madness on Netflix yet, which is the Coleman Domingo show. It feels like something that you could have just randomly popped on with Randy at some point.
No. I love when you tell me who produced it or made it or whatever, like that's going to make a difference to me. Like I actually know who the hell you're talking about.
I started it
when you guys talk about actors or actresses, you're like, no, like the one that had this person. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't know who that person is.
So you started it. I finished it. Andrew, I would
okay.
recommend avoiding the rest of that.
Really? That bad? Okay.
The pilot is amazing.
Yeah.
I think the pilot of that show is like one of the better pilots I've seen this year. And it is truly the most brain dead show I've ever like watched.
Okay.
I feel like.
Wow. Thank you for your service.
Really quite egregious.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I mean, look, Demolition Man, just an iconic film. Have you ever seen Demolition Man, Bryce? That's actually a possible outcome for you.
I have not.
Demolition Man is from like 1993 with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. It's the one where Wesley Snipes has like blonde hair.
I know those guys.
Yeah. I figured you would know who those guys are. Yeah. I mean, just an iconic film. I would recommend it. I got the new 4K. I think it's actually behind me if I move my head. Yeah. Got the new 4K from Arrow. It's delightful. Shout out the good folks over at Arrow. Sponsor the podcast, please. Arrow. Please come to me. Okay. 28 Days Later. That just came back on streaming. There's never been a movie more in need of like a remastering than 28 Days Later. Have you watched it recently, Andrew?
I haven't. No, I haven't. Not in a while.
So because they shot it like digitally with those like old cameras that are miserable to use, basically, it's really hard to remaster those movies and like make them look good on current TVs. If you pop it on at some point, like you're gonna look at it and just be like, wait, this looks like the first iteration of DVDs that came out in like 2000. Like the modern TV is like not equipped to handle 28 Days Later in its like iteration right now.
Did you see the trailer for 28 Years Later? Oh
my god.
Yeah.
So like this is a little hobby of mine, like watching trailers and things, because like I don't know if I've told you this, Andrew, but I worked at Nielsen for 10, 11 months or so. And like one of my jobs there early on was doing research on movie trailers. So I watch trailers and look at ones that like are quite effective, not very effective. I think the 28 Years Later trailer is one of the most effective trailers I've seen for a movie in years.
Really?
I think it's unbelievable.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm in.
It?
Like I'm gonna. Yeah, I saw it. I'm in. I that's very high praise. That I like it. Well, so the where Bryce, I don't know if you saw it or not. The trailer that I go to for what that came out over the last week has to be Superman. Like it's one of the most viewed
I haven't seen
trailers. You haven't seen. Okay, we want to. Unfortunately, YouTube would strike it, but I want your reaction to it now. Like what the reaction to the Superman trailer. And Bryce, did you see it?
No.
No? Okay. Do you care about Superman at all? Like that?
I do not.
Do you know who's? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was me. That was me.
He's the one that like sprays stuff out of his hands.
Yes,
'cause
he got bit by
spider.
an insect. Yeah.
Correct.
And then he
Nailed it.
From Queens. From Queens.
He drives around a Batmobile in Gotham.
Right, but so here's the thing. Superman's from Kansas. Like I figured you'd absolutely know he's from like the at least we've seen the trailer, you know, like
I mean,
he's
there's
your
like-
guy.
There's 17 Supermans.
Yeah, not wrong. There's been a lot of
Not
takes
wrong.
on the character. Yeah, not wrong.
Gladiator 2. Andrew,
What-
have you
what-
seen it yet?
Yes, what do you think?
I had a great time. So I want to
Okay.
start it there. I had a fun time. The whole time I watched it, I was Denzel is like fucking immaculate in that movie.
Steals every scene he's in.
He's unbelievable. The movie is Denzel's movie. It's not Paul
Mhm.
Mescal's movie, despite the fact that they try to make it Paul Mescal's movie. The entire time I watched it, I was just sitting there going, man, this whole exercise is just such an encapsulation of how big of a superstar Russell Crowe was and how big of just like a mega star talent that guy was in terms of like charisma, camera presence, poise, confidence, ability to like speechify on camera. Like that was my biggest issue with like Paul Mescal. Like Paul Mescal is a really good actor who I think is, you know, like excellent in After Sun and is like really, really talented. And I just felt like he was kind of miscast in the role. He looks the part, but like so many of Paul Mescal's like best shows at this point, or like best pieces of work that he's done, are like more interior and like more sensitive as opposed to this, which is like not that. It's very masculine and like driven. I feel like it didn't that be it a direction choice or be it like just a miscasting, it didn't totally work for me with him, I guess. And then like the script, when I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, like the script is fine. And then like I thought about it for 5 minutes after, and I was like, oh no, this is kind of a mess a little bit. I will say, like, Joseph Quinn is fucking amazing in that movie.
The other one too, both twins are
Fred Heckinger,
yeah, they're both pretty great. Pedro Pascal's like
excellent
barely in it, but he's like barely in it, you know, as like the guy that's gonna be Mr. Fantastic in a little bit, and is one of the guys for right now. I with you that it felt like a very high floor movie. Like this thing can't be anything if you're like grading movies as somewhat irrelevant to an extent, but like if you're saying out of 10, like the floor on this thing's a 7, then I'd agree with you just from a filmmaking standpoint and an entertainment standpoint. I aggressively a 7 though. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, this thing's ceiling just never got that high for me. And it's Ridley Scott, it's Denzel Washington, it's Gladiator. Like I was in for the
same
spectacle.
Cinematographer,
right? Like I'm
visually.
in for all of it, and the whole time I was like, I can't wait to go rewatch Gladiator when I get home.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Be reminded of these same feelings with the superior movie. You know,
Bryce, have you seen Gladiator, the first one?
You have not. Oh,
I would actually very strongly recommend you watch Gladiator. I think you would actually really like Gladiator. It's like
dope.
truly a great movie.
Yes.
And like a great movie in the way that is like entertaining and like fun to watch.
Holds up.
The final movie that we're going to talk about here is just so good. Justin Kurzel, he's this guy from Australia who loves making movies about just like terrible people who murder or are like very hateful. And in this movie, he has made The Order, which is, I mean, let's start here. Jude Law just in iconic dirtbag mode. Like dirtbag Jude Law is truly one of my favorite things to watch on planet Earth at this point.
Yeah, I love this movie.
It's amazing.
Look, I can't believe I was going to say, like, I don't want to offend anybody, but like, you're always going to win me over with your movie if you make the bad guys Nazis, just like plain and simple.
Yeah, that
and
too.
The base of this movie being that, like, oh, let's take down Nazis. Like, oh yeah, what do you know? This is right up my alley. And then the Jude Law of it all also was outstanding. So
Yeah, it's like a neo-Nazi like heist movie.
yeah.
On some level, and like Jude Law is like this FBI agent trying to track them down. It's so good. It's one of my, I don't know if it's like one of my favorite movies of the year or anything, but like I had a blast and I will absolutely watch it again at some point. And it was so freaking fun. It was so freaking fun to watch this movie. Not a fun like subject matter or anything, but like it's propulsive, it's exciting. Nicholas Holt's really good in it.
Yeah.
Like,
You're captivated the whole time. So even if it's not fun subject matter, it's like you're still interested. Your intrigue level is still through the roof throughout it. So
couldn't agree more.
yeah.
I'm trying to think anything else. Finished Why We're Polarized by Ezra Klein. Bryce, I've read 43 books this year now.
You and Randy both are over the 40 number.
I love it. Good for Ranny. Shout out to Ranny. You're gonna have to let me know if she's read anything good, because I'm constantly on the lookout.
Her genre is interesting. Yeah.
I have a good mix.
So we were driving to that Chiefs game a few weeks ago, and this is illegal, so I shouldn't say this, but I think this is illegal. I was listening to, I was just listening to a podcast. I had my headphones in
Okay.
as I was driving. It's not like I was like texting or like something crazy. I don't think you're supposed to do this though, but I had my headphones in, and then all of a sudden I look over and she's crying. And I was like, what the hell happened? Like, did you get a phone call and like something happened? Or she had finished this book that was like so emotional that she was bawling for like 10 minutes as we're driving on the interstate to the Chiefs game. I was like, good. I guess she found a good one. So yeah,
that's amazing. I love it so much. Yeah. I'm questioning how she can read in the car.
She took like Dramamine or something, so she was able to like not get sick, I think. So
smart.
Yeah.
I have not found a way to do that. Let's go with. I can read on the train, just can't read in the car for some reason.
Yep.
I go one earbud with podcasts when I'm driving too, by the way, Bryce. So you're not alone there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, hopefully this isn't like, hopefully I'm not going to get crushed for this.
Yesterday, driving out to Long Island I should say today's my mom's birthday. For my mom's birthday dinner. Happy birthday, Mama Claudia.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Mama Claudia.
Like headed out there, like in the rain, I had the Midnight Boys. It's a Ringer podcast. I was listening to them in one ear. So you're not alone.
Okay.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
Shout out to the good folks over at the Ringer. Yeah, that's what we got here. That was Recommendation Corner, and this is the end of the show now. Andrew, tell the people about what you've got going on. Tell the people about Knicks Film School, everything.
Well, you can find Knicks Film School doing entirely too much content on a daily basis, before, during, and after every Knicks game over at Knicks Film School. We are very close to the 20,000 subscriber plateau. So if you want to go over there and give them a follow, give them a subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it. You can find Game Theory, though. Game Theory CMV on all the socials. But most importantly, we have had some growth as well here at Game Theory. He's got it up on the screen. Game Theory CMV, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Twitter. I'm not calling it the other name. All the names, all the socials that you can go there. We've also had some growth over the past couple months, and we appreciate all of you for doing for joining us, for subscribing to Game Theory. We are at just under 14.5. So the goal is to, by Wednesday, by the beginning of the new year, get us to 15K. So if you're listening at the sound of our voices, at the sound of my voice, subscribe to the Game Theory YouTube channel. Let's get there by Wednesday.
And here's the fun thing that I can promise you is that over that time, tomorrow and mainly, I will be doing a post-game theory. It will not be a traditional post-game theory as far as like, I don't even know if I'll talk about any of the games that happened on Monday night, but we'll kind of talk through some of the things that have happened. I know that I want to talk through Reeves's game on Christmas, like we talked about. I want to do the Wemby game on Christmas because that was incredibly fun. And some of the ways they're using him are really, really enjoyable. I definitely want to do Jalen Johnson and Jalen Williams at some point this week, both of whom are really intriguing right now. Both of whom have like, if not borderline all-star cases, like fairly real all-star cases, I think this year in Jalen Johnson and Jalen Williams. So I kind of want to dissect what they're doing right now. And, you know, some of the places and areas where they have to improve on some level. So yeah, I can promise you will have post-game theory tomorrow at some point. I don't know. It could be even earlier in the day, honestly. Like it might end up being like a afternoon one where I just break down tape for a while and talk about basketball. But that's kind of the plan here, is at least then you will have a post-game theory. I will do one other one this week at some point as well. And then Bryce and I will record a podcast at some point as well.
Yep.
Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work.
At Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky. You could follow and subscribe to Motor City Hoops Substack. Again, want to emphasize that if your favorite team plays the Pistons, I have probably about a page of notes on your team. So if you want an outsider's perspective from that single game, you can do that. Obviously, you don't even have to subscribe. Just follow on Twitter or Blue Sky, and you'll see those. Pistons podcast. Otherwise, Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie, produced by the man GMAC.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I will have some excellent content in the new year where we talk about, I will have a mock draft very early in the new year. I'm kind of starting to work on that and get that together today, this afternoon. And then we'll kind of work through some other things over the course of the next couple of days. Rookie rankings will also be back very early in the new year, and I have to figure out who in the world is the favorite for Rookie of the Year right now. I have no idea what that answer is. It could be Eve Missy for all I know. Like I have to really do some digging and like figure out where I'm at research wise. But that's what we got here over at Game Theory. I will be back tomorrow with some post-game theory that might not be a traditional post-game thing. It'll be some of the stuff we missed over the course of the last week, including the Christmas games. But until next time, we'll talk soon.